Hey everyone, welcome back to Metal Shop Steve. Today, as promised, I'm getting back to some hair metal. I've been waiting to do this for a little while. So what I actually want to do today, and again, if you've seen the title of the video, you know what we're talking about. But I would really like to talk about one of the most underappreciated metal bands, hair metal bands of the era, and that, of course, is Firehouse. They are unfortunately one of those bands that, in spite of putting out a couple of really good rock singles, they also put out a bunch of, my favorite word again, ballads. They put out some power ballads, and that is probably what they became known for, which, again, you gotta do what you gotta do, and they're good songs, but they're underappreciated then because of that, I think, as an actual technical rock band. So that's what we're going to talk about. And as always, I have my trusty notes here just so I don't forget. So two of the things that I love about this band that really made me step up and notice, and you know, in complete honesty, I really had only listened to their debut album back in the day. And then when I went back and re-listened to it recently, again, just really thoroughly, I noticed that they really rocked. And therefore, I went out and I picked up the next two albums, and I found that I was really missing out, and I think a lot of people are probably really missing out on what a great rock band they are. So in the scope of hair metal, or where they kind of fell in the whole early 90s metal phase, they are definitely more Van Halen or Motley Crue than they are a poppier metal band like Tesla or Mr. Big or even Poison. They rock, they're on the harder rock scale of things, despite the fact that they are known for their power ballads. So again, two of the things that I love here. Number one, again, I love vocals, and their vocalist CJ Snare is just really, I think over the course of the last couple of weeks when I really put more time into listening to it, he has become one of my favorite metal singers of that era. He has kind of a little bit higher voice, but he sings with a lot of gravel in his voice. But the thing is, he has such a beautiful singing voice when he really goes out there. He has a lot of power behind it. He hits the high notes like nobody's business. Like, you know, you've probably heard a little bit of that in their songs, but he is right on key. He has outstanding control in his voice. And his voice, again, I mentioned these bands earlier, reminds me a little bit maybe of Vince Neil, maybe a little bit even of David Lee Roth. He does some of those things that David Lee Roth did with Van Halen. And I just think, again, there's one thing that I love about the band, and the other is the guitar work. They weren't just phoning it in on guitar here. Bill Leverty, the guitarist, he is a legit metal guitarist. He, you know, he gives you that nice chunky, grinding metal sound, and he can play that along with the best of them. But he also has some really great technical ability as well in terms of his solos and just some of the runs he can do with the guitar. So there is kind of you know, an overview of what Firehouse is, who they are. And actually, I believe they're still, in fact, I know they're still performing today. They were down at that M3 festival that I went to back in May. Not the original lineup anymore, but for the case of the first three albums that we're talking about here today, same lineup all the way through. And there's a lot of consistency in that, even though they, again, overlapped with when grunge was coming into the scene. So let's go ahead and talk about it. First of all, the debut album, Firehouse. And, you know, strong debut, and they got a little bit, you know, more and more out of the picture as things went on, just because the style of metal started to fade away a little bit. But just going down here, Don't Treat Me Bad. That was the first single. Starts out with a nice fast little acoustic riff, and then it kicks in, and really, really great. I think it's a great debut single because it shows a little bit of everything they can do. The rock is there, the acoustic part is there, which they play really well, and CJ Snare shows off his voice really well in this song too. So Don't Treat Me Bad. Of course, Love of a Lifetime, that was the big ballad off of this album. That's the one everybody knows. Overnight Sensation, another one. But in terms of my favorite songs on here, I'm going to go ahead and give you these. And again, this was 1990 that this came out. So Rock on the Radio is a nice little opener. But then the second song, All She Wrote, pretty good too. Really, again, consistent, and everything on here that's not a ballad really, really rocks. Shake and Tumble, number 3, maybe my favorite song on here. I really love that. Again, Don't Treat Me Bad, I love that too. Lover's Lane is another one on here. And there's a lot of parallel here, I think, between some of the Motley Crue stuff and some of this stuff. The Crue fans out there might disagree with me, maybe. But if you do, if you're a Crue fan and you resent the comparison, go back and give this another listen. I encourage you to do that before you make any comment about that. Just give it another shot. Lover's Lane, great. There's a lot of really good drum work in that too. So again, musically, just a very underappreciated group. And then finally, Overnight Sensation is my other favorite on this album. And again, just a solid, great rock album, and it rocks. It really, really rocks. So if you have kind of passed these guys by because you're worried about it being ballady or soft or too poppy, that's certainly not the case. I can tell you that. Okay, moving on. 1992, the follow-up is Hold Your Fire. And again, this is still, fairly popular stuff. Reach for the Sky, Sleeping With You is another single on there. When I Look Into Your Eyes, another great big power ballad that they were known for. It's really kind of the extent, I think, of the singles that at least I recognized as singles off of here. The fun thing about this, and one of the things again that maybe you didn't hear as much in the first album, but you definitely hear in this one is, I almost hear a little bit of influence, a little bit of Queen influence in here. Some of the harmonies they do, every once in a while there's just this wild Queen-inspired type of harmony coming out at you, which is nice. It's kind of surprising. I like it. Reach for the Sky, the opener, I like that. It was a single. Still one of the better songs on the album. Rock You Tonight is on down here. You're Too Bad, just a great, dirty, gritty rocker. The songs kind of have this swagger, this really, I don't even know the best way to describe it. The rhythm section, the drums and the bass, it's just this kind of, running, roving beat. It's I don't know, it's a nice combo. Get in Touch, another great one. And then my favorite on here, probably my favorite on here, Mama Didn't Raise No Fool. It's one of the last songs on the album. And I neglected to mention this in the first one, but they take their spots where they play a little bit of instrumental. And in fact, on the debut, Seasons of Change, there's a really nice acoustic, classical sounding. Again, Bill Leverty's just a better guitarist than he gets credit for, a way, way better guitarist than he gets credit for. So you have that. All right, moving on, number 3, which is called 3, came out in 1995. And here, I believe that, not taking anything away from Firehouse at this point, but you can kind of hear that grunge has maybe influenced a little bit in here. And there's no grunge on here, but the sound is just a little bit different. This album is not as heavy as the first two. It's not the same kind of rock throughout. So I don't think it's as consistent as the first two albums. But on here, you've got, let's see, where is the single? I Live My Life for You. That's probably the recognizable one. But in terms of the songs that, they've still got a lot of great rockers on here. What's Wrong? That's a great rocker. Get a Life has fantastic guitar work. Again, it's that signature work. Same lineup through all 3 of these first albums, and just a great rocking song. Also, Two Sides is another great one, and then Temptation toward the end of the album. Again, not as complete as solid a rock effort as the first two, but still a pretty good album. After this, they put out an acoustic album, and then they put out some more stuff, but nothing that I really got into. Again, you know, props to the guys for keeping their career going this long. But again, just to kind of reiterate what I'm saying, especially with the debut album, Firehouse, and Hold Your Fire, the follow-up, they don't mistake them for just some kind of bubblegum poppy kind of metal band, because they're definitely more on the rock side of the scale than just the poppiness. And that's not taking anything away. I didn't mean to bash Tesla or anybody like that, because I like their stuff too. But these guys are a lot harder in their first two albums. And definitely give them a shot. Give these first two albums a shot like I did. Go back, take another listen to them. If you've never really listened to them in depth, other than just knowing what their singles sound like, then I think you will be pleasantly surprised by going back and listening to those first two albums at least, and maybe a little bit of number 3, like the songs I mentioned. That's it. That's my back to basics, back to my roots hair metal video for the day. I have a couple more really interesting videos coming up. I'm going to get out of my comfort zone. I've talked to you before about how kind of the death metal sound, the really guttural, growling kind of stuff is not really in my wheelhouse, but I have decided to venture out. I have 3 albums. 2 of them are definitely in that vein, and the other one is, it's kind of right there. I'm not going to give those away yet. You'll have to see which ones they are. But if you've been holding out waiting to see me do some stuff that is kind of outside of my normal reach, here it comes. So keep a lookout for that. As always, please subscribe if you like me. Definitely keep some comments up. I love getting all the great comments and being able to talk back and forth with everybody. Suggestions, thoughts, all that good stuff. And as always, thank you so much for coming by.